Hi guys, I want to welcome you to Substance Abuse. I just wanted to give you some background information and kind of just discuss what the class is going to be like, what you're going to be learning. Um, Obviously, you're going to be learning about drugs, including alcohol. There's a whole chapter that covers alcohol, but you're going to look at opioids, you're going to look at hallucinogens. You're going to hit a lot of different, very specific drugs from their history all the way up to effects, physiological effects, psychological effects, and we're going to do a lot of research and almost debating as much as you can in an online format into some of these topics. You know, things like should marijuana be legalized or other drugs for that matter. Right now, obviously, a huge part or a huge discussion is marijuana, but we're going to look at it kind of across the board, and we're going to look some at over-the-counter drugs and should they be over-the-counter drugs? Should some of them actually have stricter guidelines? What is that process like? You're going to look at things like the drinking age. Should that be changed? If it is, or if it should, how can you back up claiming that? You know, do you have research from other countries where it is a younger age and they've seen, you know, not necessarily success with that, but not the type of problems that we tend to say we have because that's why we have our drinking age older. We're going to go through every chapter. It's going to move quickly. You have to remember this is a 6-week class. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do a little introductory video in regards to just the class itself and not me, because I want you to understand that it is a lot of information. Taking a 6-week class does not mean it is less information or less work. It is literally the exact same class that I would teach in 16 weeks that you have to do in 6 weeks. So it's a lot of work because you're going to have your questions of the week every week, and there's usually going to be 2 to 4. Most weeks there's 4, I believe. You're also going to have discussions every week. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2. And the big key thing with those is citing sources. And I put all this information out there for you guys, but the big thing is your sources have to be legitimate. So you're trying to find them through a database, which you can access through the library, or from a medical journal, which you would be able to find through the database. But if you're just using the internet, you have to be really, really careful because a lot of articles that you're going to find are not going to be legitimate. You want something that comes from a verified source, you know, and like I said, an actual medical magazine or you know, an actual newspaper article, something like that. And the key thing is all of your answers to your discussion questions have to have a source. And then when you respond to somebody else's, you also have to have a source that backs that up, and it cannot be the same source. And these sources cannot be your book. You're obviously going to use your book. Same thing with your questions, your weekly questions. Every answer that you give has to have a different source. Okay, and again, not including your book. Your book is your basic source. I know you're going to use that. That's where you're going to get the majority of your answer. Part of this process is just trying to help you understand how to go out and look for something outside of what's in your textbook and being able to support your opinion, being able to back up what your thoughts are on some of these things. The kids seemed to really like it last year. So you want to just make sure that you are definitely citing. That's the big thing, and you want to cite appropriately. So every time you cite at the end of your answer, it should be like how you would cite in a bibliography. You're also going to have tests every week. Sometimes you have 1, sometimes you have 2, because it depends on how many chapters we're covering that week. They're all online. You can use your book. Here's some things to keep in mind about your test. You're going to have 120 minutes to complete the whole thing. Once you start, you can't stop. And the essay questions are always at the end. So what I noticed happening a lot is people wouldn't keep enough time to do the essay questions, or would just skip the essay questions. And here's the thing, to get full points on the essay questions, again, you're going to have a source. So you need to give yourself plenty of time to get to those last questions. And usually there's only 3, 4, 5 of those. And when I say essay, you know, they might be 5 to 10 sentence answers. It's not a full paper. But again, you have to have that source if you want to get the full, let's say, 5 points. The other thing I noticed is a lot of people waited until that night that they were due and wouldn't give themselves time and would submit it at 11:59, but they'd only used 45 minutes of their 120 minutes. Okay, plan ahead. The 6 weeks class, it's a lot of information. I believe in the syllabus it says you should probably plan to have 15 to 20 hours to work on this per week, which is a lot, but ideally, you know, this is one of the few classes you're taking because you're taking it in the summer and it's only a 6-week class. You're also going to have a project, and I've broken it down super easy, the best that I can. And every week you're going to have a part of that project due. So those points are going to add up. So if you miss a step, that's fine. You can keep going and go to the next step. You're just going to lose those points. Overall, it's 200 points of your grade. Should be pretty basic and easy. It's going to be a basic paper, 4 to 6 pages. You pick a drug, you research it. What you'll notice is in the beginning, you're going to pick your drug. Once you pick a drug in the discussion thread, nobody else can pick that drug. And then you're going to work through a process. You're going to do a bibliography, but you need to make sure your sources are appropriate and from a database, etc. Okay, then you're going to do what we call a lit review, which is basically a summary of all your different sources that you're going to use. And then you're going to go into an outline, and then you're going to go into a rough draft. You're going to hand in your rough draft, and I'm going to make corrections so that you can actually fix it and hand it in for your final paper so that hopefully you can get all of your points pretty easily. The only other thing you're going to do with that is the brochure. And if you have any questions about that, obviously you can ask me. So those are going to be the basic things. The big key thing is you should be reading the chapter before we go over it. You're going to notice there's going to be a PowerPoint and there's going to be a video lecture. In the video lecture, I basically just kind of reiterate some of the things that they talk about in the book. Try to get you guys to think about some different things. But you really need to be reading it, because when you go to do your test, if you haven't read it, it's going to take you a lot longer than if you have read it. The other thing, I want to make sure, always try to use proper spelling and things like that. You'll notice in your rubrics, when you go in, almost everything has a rubric attached to it. And it's, you know, it's going to tell you how many points you get for each thing. And you're always going to have points for the sources. You're always going to have points for spelling, grammar, things like that on top of your content. Make sure you pay attention to length amount. So if I say it has to be 10 sentences, make sure it's 10 sentences. If I say it has to be 5 sentences, make sure it's 5 sentences. Really, it should be pretty basic and easy. You're going to be able to email me anytime you want. I'm also going to set up a remind text, which you can use as an app, which basically means you'll be able to text me without you knowing my phone number, and I'll be able to reply to you via text without me knowing your phone number. And that way, if you have any quick questions that you need answered right away, you can text me through that application, and I'll put something on the website to show you exactly how to use that. And that way, like, I'm going to be on vacation for a little while, and, you know, I'll check my email maybe once a day, maybe once every other day. So if there's something that you're really, really needing help with, please feel free to text me. I'll get back to you as soon as possible to make sure that you're able to be successful. I hope you guys are ready to learn about substance abuse. It's a pretty interesting class. It's pretty fun, and at least you get to investigate and argue a little bit about some different topics that we're seeing in our society right now.